Right, so pride, patriotism, flying the English flag on St. George's Day. Is this something you do? Is this something you take pride in? If so, why? What is it about that flag that inspires you and enthuses you to fly it with pride? What is it about it you take pride in? Now, I'm not one such person. I'll say this up front, but then I consider myself Cornish as opposed to English. I have no issue with flags per se. The Cornish flag of Cornwall's patron saint, St. Piran, is incorporated into my logo after all. It's nice to have pride in your roots, and flags certainly do symbolise that. The trouble is, the English flag, much like the Union flag over the last several years, is becoming more and more a source of shame for a lot more people, and for no small wonder when we see what is being done in our name with that flag, and who is being seen as representative of British patriotism more and more, being seized upon by the far right as it has been, more and more seen as a symbol of racism and not national pride, not to mention a symbol of hypocrisy too, especially amongst our political class, because St. George wasn't just the English patron saint after all. He was patron saint of a lot more than just that. Right, so St. George's Day, not a day many of us would have celebrated, unlike other saints' days, because, well, we don't get a bank holiday for it for starters to go out and celebrate it, and that might be one reason why scenes like this happen every year, the day being marked by scenes of people like this lot, the far right, draping themselves in the flag, claiming, as they so often do, to be patriots, expressing civic pride by, well, getting pissed as a newt and causing chaos in the streets, fighting with the police no less, 6 arrests in London having been made following those scenes there. Whilst it is just an ordinary work day for most of us, in large part probably not even acknowledging it even was St. George's Day, since it makes no difference to us. It gets left to the likes of this bunch to mark the day, and therefore the day gets remembered for scenes like that lot rather than anything remotely to do with national pride. It becomes a day of national embarrassment instead, and shame, as this is how the eyes of the world see the English. No doubt, apart from wearing the flag, they probably have it plastered all over their social media as well. Many of us on social media are familiar with the type, along with the word patriot that so often goes along with it. Well, there's nothing patriotic in the police needing to organise a response that requires riot gear to control, is there? One of these assholes yesterday actually hit a police horse with their umbrella. It's no wonder the English flag is seen more and more as something to fear, as something representative of far-right ideals rather than anything else, national pride certainly. Not helped by the presence of people like Tommy Robinson, and all in all it looked very much like the far-right's last show of fake patriotism last year, when they desecrated the cenotaph. Due to how the flag has been adopted in the way it has by the far right in this country, it has arguably become more and more a symbol of racism. And this isn't even a recent thing, because for decades it's been used as a symbol of white supremacy, of leftover imperialistic leanings among certain quarters. For people of colour, it's a symbol of something to fear. And this was spelt out on Good Morning Britain by one of their guests, Dr. Kehinde Andrews, who's a professor of black studies at Birmingham University, who said on the show, "The English flag isn't just a symbol of racism, it may be the primary symbol of racism in this country because of how it has been adopted and co-opted by the far right. In my mum's generation, it was keep Britain white and being chased down the street being called a monkey. In my generation, it was the National Front telling me to go home, and now you have the EDL, the BNP, and all these other groups, right? And to be fair, if all the same people hurling out all this abuse, waving this flag, having it tattooed on their chest, then what else could it possibly be?" Don't disagree with him. Scenes such as those in London that we saw, it's pretty hard to disagree with him, isn't it? Especially with the lived-in experiences he and his family absolutely have, and absolutely so many other people of colour in this country have experienced too, to national shame, or what should be. Dr. Andrews summed it up well further on in his interview when he said unless it is a match day, seeing that flag being flown in a pub meant it was a no-go zone. A real no-go zone. Not the fake ones, again, right-wing voices claim exist in this country, and naturally they were full-throated in their opining on these scenes of disruption in London. Former Tory party campaign organiser and media mouthpiece Sophie Corcoran took to Twitter deciding to do a "yeah, but what about just stop oil" attack on the police for taking to task these patriots and not peaceful protesters blocking roads. That's called upholding the law. A little thing called causing a public disturbance. I know it offends your sensitive snowflake right-wing proclivities, but people are still allowed to protest. She also wrote, whilst captioning Just Stop Oil protesting and the scenes from London with the police, "Police when you're woke breaking the law versus police when you wear an English flag on St George's Day." Again, Just Stop Oil weren't breaking the law. Stamp your tiny feet, scream and scream until you're sick, but it doesn't change anything. Good of South to bring up the far-right swathe in their flags and reinforce the opinion of Dr. Andrews, I felt, though, when noting the need for the police to step in there. She was particularly vocal as another tweet of hers also bears mention, again, attacking the police. "They stand there and watch Just Stop Oil break the law. They stand there and watch Palestine protesters use extremist language and support terrorism, but all of a sudden they learn how to police when a bit of patriotism is involved." No doubt some of you will have spotted the grammar and punctuation mistakes of this so-called journalist there. I've left them in as I'm quoting her directly, so don't have a go at me for them being there. But it tickled me no end that Corcoran now chose to attack Palestine protesters too, because when, as the title implied, I asked, well, where was Gideon Falter in all of this disruptiveness, and if Corcoran bothered with research too, she'd know that St George isn't just the patron saint of England after all. He also happens to be the patron saint of Palestine. You'd imagine Falter and his ilk ought to be calling the entire celebration of St George an anti-Semitic thing to do then, surely. St George was a Roman soldier, his mother was a Palestinian, and he never came to England, so he has more in common with Palestine than he ever does with any of us here. More times to Palestine than he ever does for England, but then he's also a patron saint in Ethiopia and Brazil and Iberia and Bosnia and many other places besides. The only link he really has to those swathed in flags disrupting the police in London, in my opinion, is that he also happens to be the patron saint of skin disease sufferers and syphilis. Of course, being tied to Palestine via patron saint certainly isn't enough to sway our politicians either, who do little to discourage the abuse of the flag when frankly they do it themselves, don't they? Weaponising it for political gain, which should be the lowest of the low, and we should all sneer and boo at politicians doing things like that. None have been more obvious about that, of course, than Keir Starmer has, who was frankly running out of places to stick more flags up around himself. Has now got it plastered all over Labour membership cards. But equally, when the flag has come to symbolise right-wing leanings, is abused by the far right as it is. To see any politicians doing likewise becomes off-putting as well. Starmer put out a gushing video yammering on about pride and national identity on the day. Yet how can we be proud, especially when it's coming from him, when he supports Israel, still committing genocide in Palestine, the flag of St George also being a flag flown there, the red cross on white background, has been his symbol, the symbol of St George, since the Middle Ages. It's not actually unique to us, owned by us, just because we use it as our national symbol. The flag has become a symbol of division in our society, not cohesiveness. Yet Starmer has also said he wants to use the flag as a symbol of patriotism, a mark of patriotism. Patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel, so said Samuel Johnson. And Keir Starmer certainly sums that up. But why? Why does it have to be a symbol of patriotism, Keith? Why? Was Jeremy Corbyn again, isn't it? Yes, the jam-making vegetable botherer is still living rent-free in Starmer's head. His justification is because Corbyn, under Corbyn, the Labour Party was seen as not patriotic. Well, why was that then? Because you wouldn't bow low enough to the Queen? Those scenes on the streets of London are how the flag and patriotism go together these days. It's a horrible sight. And especially with public services crumbling, we're all harder up and worse off, and he wants to talk about flags making it all better. No. If you want to make the flag a symbol of something good again, then do something about it. Jeremy Corbyn had planned on making St George's Day an actual bank holiday. Everyone could then celebrate it. How the flag comes to be remembered could be far different than it is now, being allowed to be dictated by the far right. Just talking about flags and standing against flags like Starmer insists upon just makes you look like one of them. Make it stand for something different, or is that not possible because this was Jeremy Corbyn's idea? As for the Tories, because who could leave them out of this at all, they solidly reinforce the belief that the flag symbolises racism as their rancid Rwanda bill happened to pass on St George's Day. If that doesn't sum up the meaning of patriotism in England in this day and age here and now, I don't know what does. And nothing sums up Tory failure quite like it does either, as this video recommendation will fill you in on all about the reasons that bill, that Rwanda bill, the Rwanda flights and Swell of Bradman's dreams and all the rest of it, will still fail, and it won't stop the boats. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.